All right, this is our second day of adding and subtracting rational expressions and the last lesson for this unit. These are just a little more difficult. It's the same concept as in 5.4, lesson 5.4. It's just we've got, a little more difficult factorizations to cope with. So we're going to go through again, common denominator when you're adding and subtracting. So we've got, we need to factor this, so let's get our pen. We need to factor this down here, denominator, and that would factor mentally as x minus 3 times x minus 2. Again, we know because this is positive, both the signs are the same, and this tells me they're both negative. So we can write this one, the first one. Well, let's look. We've got this next one, and I didn't write small enough, so I'll go down here, is x minus 2 times x plus 2. So our common denominator is going to have to be x minus 3 times, well, I wrote 2, but I'll make that a 3. X minus 3 times x minus 2 times x plus 2. That's going to have to be our common denominator. So what's this one is missing is the x plus 2. So we'll have, let me erase this and I'll write it first. Okay. On this one we're going to have x plus 2 over x plus 2 times the 3 over x minus 3 times x plus x minus 2. And that's a plus, even though it doesn't look like it. All right, then we have plus, and we're going to multiply this one by what's missing, which is the x minus 3. Again, we multiply by 1 in the form of x minus 3 over x minus 3. Any number over itself or any expression over itself is 1. And that's going to be multiplied by 2 over x minus 2 x plus 2. And I keep it in factored form because it's easier to see that now we do in fact have this common denominator. And that's an x. It doesn't look much like an x. Okay, so when we distribute this 3 to the x plus 2, we have 3x plus 6. Since this is a plus, we don't have to worry about changing any signs. So we'll have plus 2x minus 6. Now our 6's are going to add to be 0, so that simplifies my numerator quite a bit. We have 5x over x minus 3, a little shaky, x minus 2 times x plus 2. And that would be our final answer. We're going to show it in factored form. Can't simplify anymore because even though there's x's in each of these parentheses, remember the whole factor has to match. We can't, because that's x minus 3, we can't cancel this x out. If there was an x in front by itself multiplied by each of these factors, then that x could cancel. But these x's inside the factors can't. The factors have to match exactly with one in the numerator. Okay, so let's look at just this denominator here, and we have 2. We're going to factor out a 2 because that's the greatest common factor. X squared minus 3x plus 9, and then we need to think to see if we can factor this any more. And we need factors of 9 that would add to be negative 3, and we just have 9 times 1 and 3 times 3, and none of those, they both have to be negative. So this will not factor any more than that. It has to stay. Now this is a sum of cubes, so that's going to factor, and I'm going to come over here underneath just like I did before. We have the cube root, a in this case, is x, and b is 3. So we have x plus 3, if you remember from lesson 2. And then we have a squared, which would be x squared, plus ab, so that's going to be, excuse me, it's going to be minus ab. Got to remember my facts, just like I tell you, you have to memorize them. So this is x squared minus 3x, and plus 9. Well, that's convenient, and usually math problems are kind of contrived. They're not like real life problems, they're contrived, so they work out pretty well. These match, so they have that in common, but with this one, the second one is missing a 2, the first one is missing x plus 3. So we have to multiply this first fraction by x plus 3 times x plus 3. 1, or in other words, by 1 in the form of x plus 3. And we multiply that by the 5 over 2 times x squared minus 3x plus 9. All right, minus this time, so we're going to have to be careful with that minus sign there. This one was missing the 2, so we're going to multiply it by 2 over 2 times 2x minus 6 over x plus 3 times x squared minus 3x plus 9. I'm going off the chart a little bit there. All right, so I'm going to skip down where I don't have anything written. All right, our common denominator is a long one. It's 2 times x plus 3 times x squared minus 3x plus 9. Okay. And now let's distribute this 5 where we have 5x plus 3. Then remember, this minus is going to have to be distributed across this when we distribute the 2. So that's going to be 4x plus 12. Yes, I didn't write that 2x plus 6 very well. Okay, let me fix that so it looks better, because it doesn't look like what it is supposed to be. It's 2x plus 6. Okay. So then when we distributed the 2, we got 4x plus 12. All right, we're going to combine. Remember then, this minus is distributed, so when we do that, we have minus 4x minus 12. So I'm just going to fix that so that we have minus 4x minus 12. And then the 5x plus 3 doesn't need to be in parentheses either. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite that so that it looks, I'm limited on room here, so that's why I'm doing it, erasing that 5x minus 3. Really doesn't need to be in parentheses because there was nothing that would change. Now 5x minus 4x is going to be x, and negative 3, was that 5x should be in a plus. I rewrote it wrong. 5x plus 3. And I can't multiply. You probably have already caught that mistake. That should have been 5x plus 15. Okay, 15 minus 12 then, if I can get all my math straight, is x minus 3 over all of this denominator, should be x plus 3, plus 15 minus 12 is plus 3. So we have 2 times x plus 3 times x squared minus 3x plus 9. All right, then our x plus 3's will cancel out. Remember, this doesn't cancel to 0, it cancels to 1, because anything over itself is 1. And our denominator is 2 times x squared minus 3x plus 9. Okay, and that's our final answer. Lots of mistakes there. I apologize. Must still be loopy from my surgery and pain meds. But anyway. Okay. Very good. Now we have a couple more. Only 2 more examples for today. And then you can get to work. Again, more of the same. You've probably gotten a little behind. You'll get a review today, and we'll have a test next time. Okay, I'm going to click and move up and wait for it to show up for me. All right, factor these to see what we need. So this time they both have to be factored, as they both have. This is going to factor as x minus 2, no, x minus 1 times x minus 1. Okay, and this one is going to factor as x minus 2 times x. Should be plus 2 and x minus 1. Okay, because it's a positive x there, so the 2 has to be positive. All right, so we've got this factored. This has an x minus 1. It doesn't have an x minus 2. So we're going to multiply the first fraction by plus 2, x times x over x plus 2. 1 in the form of x plus 2 over x plus 2. Multiply that by 1, and we have x minus 1 times x minus 1. Minus again, so again, red flag when you've got a minus. This one has 1x minus 1 and an x plus 2, but it needs another x minus 1. So 1 in the form of x minus 1 times x plus 1 over x plus 2 times x minus 1. All right, so now our common denominator is x plus 2 times x minus 1 twice. Okay? So this one, 1 times x plus 2 is x plus 2. Now we're going to have to minus, but we have to multiply or FOIL this x minus 1 times x plus 2. That's easy. It's a difference of squares, if you recognize that factorization. So that's going to be x squared minus 1. And if you FOIL it, it's okay. If you don't recognize it, your middle terms are just going to cancel. But then again, we have this minus. I think I have enough room, so I'll write it. We have x plus 2 minus x squared plus 1. All of that over x plus 2 times x minus 1 times x minus 1. All right, and when we combine those things, we end up with negative x squared plus x plus 3, all of that over x plus 2 times x minus 1 times x minus 1. And if you notice, this one cannot factor. We need things that would add to be a negative 3x squared, or multiply to be negative 3x squared, add to be 1. Well, 3 and 1 in no combination adds to be 1. So we cannot factor this numerator. So we have to leave it just like this. If we can factor it, we do so and then cancel out if we can. All right, now if you recognize, they've thrown in here a review problem. This is a division and this is a multiplication. So we do not have to get a common denominator. We do have to factor things. We do have to invert the fraction after this division sign. So we can factor. This one will factor as 4 times x to the 4th minus 4. And factoring this denominator would be x plus 4 times x minus 1. Now we're going to multiply this, so that means the 3x minus 15 is going to be in the numerator, so we'll factor out a 3 and end up with x minus 5 over 2x. There's nothing we can do with that 2x. And this stays the same. We can't factor a sum. Well, actually we can factor out an x. So let's factor out an x. Factor out an x, and that leaves me with x plus 4. And down here, we can factor out a negative 2. And the reason I factor out a negative 2 is so that squared term will be positive. So that's going to leave me with positive 5x squared minus x and plus 5. Okay? Oh, wait a minute. Go back. I'm not thinking. When we have 4 terms, I was missing a term somewhere in my... When we have 4 terms, what we need to do is group. So we're going to group these two and these two. Remember our chart. Factor out here a 2x squared. And that leaves me with x minus 5. And then factor out here a 2. And that leaves me with x minus 5. Okay. So these, let's rewrite it again. Factor it as much as we can. This will factor as a difference of squares. So we're going to have 4 times x squared plus 2 times x squared minus 2, and x squared minus 2. This should be a 1. 4 divided by 4 is 1. I know y'all are probably screaming at home thinking, what is this woman doing? Okay. Okay, now that's x squared plus 1. Get my pen back. X squared plus 1. Then that'll factor as x squared minus 1 will factor as x minus 1 times x plus 1. Okay. And we still on the bottom have x plus 4 times x minus 1. We couldn't do any more with that. Can't do any more with this middle fraction, or with, yeah. So we have over 2x. And this one, we'll rewrite the numerator. The denominator we'll write as factors. We have 2x squared plus 2, and we can factor a 2 out of that. And that'll leave me x squared plus 1. And then we have x minus 5. And you see this 2x squared plus 2 is where I factored the 2 out of that. And I could have factored that 2 out first, but I didn't have to. All right, so what can we cancel? Well, 4 is 2 times 2, so there's a 4, and there's a 2 and a 2. X squared plus 1 will cancel. X minus 1 will cancel. X minus 5 will cancel. This x will cancel, and you probably cancel other things. This x plus 4 cancels. Now there's nothing left in the denominator to cancel, so there's just a 1 down there. We have a 3 and an x plus 1 that have not canceled in the numerator. So we have 3 times x plus 1 is our answer. And again, this goes back to 5-3. This is a review. Notice that with a subtraction sign between or an addition sign between the two fractions, you have to find the common denominator. If it's multiplied or divided, you do not have to find the common denominator. You factor them all, cancel factors, and what's left is your answer. So it's more complicated to add and subtract. It's a little more difficult. But bear in mind, don't get confused. Keep in mind the differences in how you handle multiplying and dividing versus adding and subtracting fractions. Okay, we're finished with Unit 5.